crochet friends, it's me, Jonah, and today I'm going to show you how to make these absolutely beautiful crochet faux cable fingerless gloves. And these gloves are so pretty, but yet they're deceptively easy, which is always a plus when you're going to make a project. And I could say that an advanced beginner could make these because the only stitches you need to know is the chain, the double crochet, the slip stitch, and the single crochet, and how to do those into the back loop. That's it. The rest of the steps I will teach you here today. And the yarn I used for this sample was only one ball of We Are Knitters Le Petit Wool, a soft and squishy 100% Peruvian Highland wool. But I can't use cream on a white background because you won't be able to see my stitches. So today I'll be substituting with another 4 worsted weight yarn, Red Heart with Love. But use what you have at home, any 4 worsted weight yarn. And with your yarn, you will also need a crochet hook. I have used an I9 5.5 millimeter. This is my Andromeda swirl from Furls. I'll put a link below. And there'll also be that same frills link below to my Odyssey hooks right here and the stand that they're in. And then it's preferable that you also have a tape measure. And then of course your basic crochet accessories of a pair of scissors and then also a tapestry needle. Now I'm going to hop in and show you how to get started on these faux cabled mittens. Okay, so to start off our gloves, we're going to need to start with the foundation, of course. So get a nice length of yarn and start by creating a slip knot, just like you always do to get the yarn on your hook. And then I like to start with the foundation double crochet so you get more stretch. So I'm going to chain up 1, chain up 2, yarn over, insert under 2 loops of that first chain, pull up a loop, chain 1, and finish your double crochet. Yarn over, insert under 2 loops of that first chain at the bottom of your foundation. You can kind of turn it sideways. And pull up a loop. Pull it up a little higher than the 3rd loop on your hook and make a loose chain 1. And yarn over and pull through 2 twice to finish your double crochet. And repeat that. And I'm going to work some more of my foundation double crochets while I explain what the point of the foundation double crochet is. The point of all foundation stitches is that, well, for one thing, you don't have to make that long, tedious chain and counting. Some chains over 400. And you don't want to always have to do that, and it's so hard to get it on point if it's 421. But with this method, it's much easier to keep track of. And you're also crocheting your first row of chains, and then your first row of your stitches on top of it. So it saves you a lot of time. But that is not the main reason why you do it. So as a recap, you don't have to do that long, tedious chain. It saves you a ton of time because you're getting your first and your chain and your first row done at the same time. But you also get an amazing stretch. Since you know that when you chain and double crochet across it, it's not very flexible, it's very tight, and it just won't budge. But with the actual fabric of the crochet, it's very stretchy and flowy. So the rest of the fabric has stretch, but your chain doesn't have the stretch, and that sometimes pulls in at the bottom. But with the foundation double crochet, as I'll show you demonstrated right now, what you're doing is you want to make a chain at the bottom for your actual chain. So you're going to make a chain 1, and that's the bottom of your work. Then you're going to make it and finish it by doing a double crochet. And look what we get. just double crochets, pretty top, pretty bottom, and you just have these nice arrows along the edge. So it's like, what's the difference? The major difference of why the foundation is so important is look at that stretch. It has the same amount of stretch as the rest of the fabric. So do these foundation double crochets until you've reached the number that you need. And in this pattern, which is actually a pattern designed by Crochet Dreams with a Z, you will need to do a total of 33 foundation double crochets. But if you want to do the other method for your foundation, you can chain 35 and then go 4th chain from hook and double crochet across. But of course, since I won't be making a full glove with you for the sake of this tutorial, I'll be doing a little sample, so I'm just going to work a few more of my stitches. And this is where I'll stop for my sample, just for showing you. Okay? And then that's where I'm going to stop for my sample. But you remember, you'll just need to keep going till you've reached 33. And meet me back here when you're done. And now, let's go right into row 2. So, as usual, you're going to flip your work, just like you flip a page in a book, grabbing this side and turning it. And then if you look at the back here, you can see we have these really defined stitches, and you also have these really defined V's at the bottom, which are super important. But for now, we're going to start by yarning over and chaining 1. And in this case, that counts as the first stitch. I'll repeat that again. This is vital for your glove. This chain 1 counts as your first slip stitch. So we're skipping the first stitch because we already have done it. And we're going to go to the back loop of our next stitch and slip stitch. In case you don't know what the back loop is, I'm going to pull out one of my tapestry needles in my needle case from Faux, which I'll put a link to below. And I'll give you more about the anatomy of the stitch. So if you turn your work up, you see that you have a loop right here that's facing towards you. That's the front loop. But normally in crochet, you'll go under both loops. You'll go underneath that little V. That's going under both loops. But if you turn your work and go on the loop away from you, right under here, that's the back loop. That's where we want to go. So we're going to go into the second stitch. Then yarn over and pull up a loop. You have 2 on your hook. And then pull the first through the second. Insert into the next back loop. And pull up a loop. And pull through 2. And you may be noticing that I'm really letting my yarn flow freely and not giving it too much tension. And putting my yarn well up on my working area of my frills hook. Is because look, now it's the same size. But if you just did slip stitch normally, it would stay right up here on the shaft of your hook, and that would pull your glove in like this. But this keeps it laying nice and flat. So as you can see, I'm just going to keep slip stitching in the back loop across of my sample. And by the end, you will have 1 chain and then 32 slip stitches in the back loop for your sample. And as you can see, from working these slip stitches in the back loop, it creates a really defined ridge. But that's not what we're going to have on the right side of our work, which you'll get to see once we move on to our next round. Okay, you can see I've worked my slip stitches nice and loose, so I'm going to turn it like a book. And wow, look at that ridge. This is what you're going to want to pop up and turn forward. So now we're starting row 3, which is one of our repeat rows. So we're going to start by making our turn, of course, and chaining up 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And that also counts as your first stitch, counts as a double crochet. So next you're going to yarn over and skip your first stitch and make a double crochet in your next. But the secret to getting those ridges is to go into the back loop like I showed you earlier with my tapestry needle. Catch it, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and over, go into the next back loop, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And while you're doing this glove, make your double crochet stitches all in the same tension. Make sure that they stay really even. And I'm just gonna work through a couple more stitches here, and then I'm gonna lay my work down and show you how it's going so far and what it's gonna look like for you when you're making your beautiful gloves. You can just see through the screen how much fun these are to make, because you get to do the back loop and see the ridges forming, and I really do enjoy it with this, well, with the silver plate on the hook with this yarn. It's super smooth. And look how beautiful that is. Perfectly even stitches. You have this gorgeous ridge. It's exactly what you're going for. And after you work rows 2 through 3, you'll get a ton of practice and you'll be a pro in no time. Okay. Now I'm going to just speed up my crochet just a little bit. Not too much, so you can still see that I'm just going into the back loops, but just a teeny bit. Go into that last slip stitch. It's tricky to find, so just yarn over your hook, dive right in, scoop, and pull through 2 to finish. But you're not finished yet. You look at it again, so you have to wrap and go into that first chain and double crochet there. And you've done the next row of your repeat. And then if I lay it flat, you can see how you have those ridges going across. And now I'm going to turn my work again, chain up 1, and slip stitch in the back loop across again. You can see how pretty it's turning out. If I lay it down and turn, you can see you have these ridges right here, but if you flip it over, you have this really dominant ridge. So to get that, you'll need to keep repeating your second row and your third row of double crochet and slip stitch until you have a total of 16 rows. And I'll meet you back here when you're done with that. But of course, I'm working a much smaller sample just to show you guys how the techniques are done. I'm going to work for fewer rows, but now I'm gonna speed up the video a bit and work through some more rows, and I'll meet you back here once you're done with that. Okay, I'm back. I worked a couple of more mime rows, but I did want to let you know, as you work your rows, will want to start going like that. That's not your fault. That you can't keep your edges straight like that in this. That is the anatomy of the stitch. That's how the stitch is made, so this will happen. But what you have to do is take your work and pull it in the other direction and massage it out like so. And it will stay, because you need to put the ridges into place, because when you're working them, these pull down and these pull out, but they need to stay like this because of the slip stitch ridges. And once you seam it, then you'll have no issue at all. So now I'm going to take you through the steaming, and then I'm going to hop right in to the cabling. So pull out some nice length of yarn that you would use for sewing a seam. At least 1.5 feet. And then thread your yarn needle. And then, of course, fasten off by pulling up through that loop. And we want these ridges to be on the outside. So we're actually going to seam this with the right side in, the right side out. And this is just a little sample, of course. But the stitch I'll be using to seam this is the mattress stitch. And it works perfectly for this. So you're going to go underneath both loops of your I'll turn it this way so you can see. On your right hand side with your foundation stitches, you'll go from the bottom to the top, out through both loops, and then you'll come back around and go to your left hand side and then just catch what would be the back loop of that ridge, coming up from the bottom to the top. That's how you will always do it with the mattress stitch. And pull up the rest of your yarn. And then if I just lay this flat and pull off a bit more of my yarn, you can see, there we go. I'm gonna rethread it. You can see how it's joining, it's seamless, but I'll work a couple more. Go under both loops of the corresponding stitch of the first foundation stitch, and then coming over and going under just the back loop on the opposite side. Now if you'd like, of course you can always use the whip stitch, the running stitch, however you'd like to join them. You can even use your crochet hook and slip stitch them together, but I prefer the mattress stitch because number one, it's seamless and it leaves a clean edge, but number two, it also really makes that ridge stand out, because if it pulls itself in, then it'll look like you have a big gap with no ridge. But this way you can see we get a ridge still. Now I'm going to speed up a little bit, because once you learn how to do the mattress stitch, you can do it pretty fast. Except it is tricky getting under those loops on the ridge hand side. And pull those tight, and look, seamless. You have your arrows and you have this, but you don't see a seam. The mattress stitch, it takes a little longer, but the end result is absolutely perfect with no seam. Because with all the hard work that you've put into your project, you don't want to have a seam ruining it. Okay, and then I'm going to take a measurement, see if I have 2.5 inches left. Okay, so I'll have this much left and I have 1 inch, and then if I put my straight edge down, I see that'll be lining up right there. And it's a little bit past, but that's okay because we'll be adding our single crochet. Then we're just going to come to one side and then just keep whip stitching around one side for an inch, which in my case is equivalent to 3 stitches. And then go back across and continue doing the mattress, skipping the equal number of stitches on the opposite side. And underneath, and then just turning your work and flipping it as necessary. And do not forget your last stitch. I repeat, do not forget that last stitch. It is super tricky to find, but you can't forget it. And then I just like to always secure my edges by going through that first loop twice. And then to weave in your end, just flip your work inside out. And then just sew down this side till you get to the base of these double crochets. There we go. Then just take your hook and catch a ton of loops. Just insert your needle under both the loops of the double crochet, making sure not to go under like this, because you can see that on the other side. Catching the top loops right here. Just kind of maneuvering your hook till you get a nice distance down your glove, because it'll be moved around a lot, the fabric will be opened. You want your ends to be very secure. So take your time weaving in your ends. And then pull all those loops through. And then you see if you pull it tight, it cinches up, so you want to open it up like you would if the fabric was being. And then skip that first leg of the stitch so it fastens it while you maneuver that needle back up across your loops. And pull up and out like so. And there we go. You can take your needle, snip it, then time to flip your work back right side out. And now it is time for me to show you how to do your cabling. Set this end aside. Okay, so we're going to start and put a slip stitch on your hook. You can actually pause that. Mom, you can edit that. Now I'm going to show you your cabling. Start with a slip knot. And then make a slip knot or slip stitch into that first ridge. And then you're going to chain 4. Chain up 1, chain up 2, chain up 3, chain up 4. And then you can count these ridges and go to the 9th one in the middle. I mean the 5th one in the middle, my apologies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Insert my hook underneath that ridge. Slip stitch. Chain up 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And turn your work crossing back across. Now from this first stitch right here, count up 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Insert under that ridge. Slip stitch. And chain up 1, 2, 3, 4. And repeat, skipping 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And look, that's how you do your cabling. In, out, in, out. I'm going to chain up 4 again. And then you'll be skipping to your last stitch right up top here. And since you'll be single crocheting over this later, so you don't have an extra end, you just slip stitch across to this side. however you'd like. Just keep them loose, nice and open and loose, pushing them far back on the shaft of your hook. You'll be single crocheting over that later. It'll be completely hidden. Clean up all your edges. Plus, it already kind of cleans it up in a way. Next, chain up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then turn your work going back the other direction and slip stitch in the same stitch where you had previously done your slip stitch for the last one. Chain up 4. Now you actually don't have to count your stitches. You can just eyeball them, find it here, go across, and read it, and slip stitch. And then we're gonna pause here, pause right here, and then do a chain 4, and then slip stitch, and then do a final chain 4, and then slip stitch to this stitch right here. Look at that, you've done the cable. That is how it opens up, and this was just my little sample. But if I pull out one of my actual gloves and I put it on, you can see how long it is and how warm and cozy it is, and how you'll have more sets of cables. And you put the cable after skipping one, so your thumb comes out that hole. And look at that, beautiful. This is where the join is, but it's very seamless, and you get the ridges going all the way around. And that single crochet in the edges, you see, cleans it up perfectly. No imperfections. This looks like a beautiful piece of handmade artwork. And remember, you just need any 4 worsted weight yarn, 5.5mm hook, and your basic crochet accessories. And a moderate to advanced beginner can make this, because remember, chain, double crochet and slip stitch, and single crochet in the back loop. That's all you need to know. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Before I go, I have a little more to tell you. I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial on these faux cabled fingerless gloves. They work up so quickly because they only use about 150 yards of a worsted weight yarn. So they're super quick. A moderate beginner can do them because they only use the single, double, slip stitch, and chain stitch in the back loop. And these cables, they just use slip stitch in the chain. They're so simple, and I think they will make the perfect gift or for craft shows if you need to make a lot of things in different colors. And like I said earlier, I just reminded you, I have a link to my needle case and my crochet hooks and the stand too. I'll put that below. And then don't forget, check out my second book, which is a pattern book, Giving Back Crochet by Jonah Larson, full of great patterns to give back, like hats, all different hats, scarves, mittens, blankets, baskets, all sorts of things for you to stitch and support for awareness months or just to give back in general. And don't forget to check out my crochet t-shirts on my website. And I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial again. And don't forget to subscribe to Jonah's Hands. And please, I would love to see the finished pictures of your gloves, so you can send them to me on my Instagram, Jonah Hands, or my Facebook, Jonah's Hands. Can't wait to see what you do and which colors you choose. See you next time. Crochet away, friends.